Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm watching Pliny Explains It All 2, Man, the Historia Naturalis abridged by Sam O'Nella Academy. That's right, Sam is back. It's been about, 1.5 years since he released the first video. The first one, I believe, covered books 1 and 2, so this one's probably going to cover 3, maybe also the 4th one. We'll see.
Hello, the new version of my short story collection, Still Lost, is coming out September 1st, and I'm going on a small tour to promote it, so if you live near one of these places, come hang out. It's free. Links in the description.
Only
anyway,
in
on to
the
video.
US,
Hey seniors, it's finally happened. I've actually followed up on a promise for a sequel. Welcome back to Pliny Explains It All, the Historia Naturalis
Pliny, not Pliny.
If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the first one. Today we'll be taking a look at book 7, titled Man, His
7.
Birth, His
Okay.
Organization, and the Invention of the Arts. Now you may be saying, Sam, we left off on book 2, so what the hell happened to 3 through 6? Well, I read them. Boy, howdy did I read them. Let me give you just a general idea of their contents. I want you to imagine a map in front of you. It's a map of the world, containing every nation, every region, every city and town, every mountain, sea, lake, and river known to man, each with their locations and borders precisely marked in relation to one another. Now, imagine you get a call from a cartographer who wants to make a reconstruction of your map. So you're like, alright, I will send it to you, like a normal person. He goes, nah, let's just do it over the phone. Write down the next 100,000 words out of your mouth, and you've got a decent approximation of books 3 through 6. Pliny even goes out of his way in the intro to say, right, I'm just gonna be naming places. Everything even remotely interesting about them, I'm saving for later. So believe you me, I am doing us both a favor by skipping ahead. But on the other hand, book 7 was...
Jesus, okay, so we're skipping, 4 books? I mean, hey, he read them, and if he believes that there's no point talking about them, then I'll trust him.
Fascinating. Just like last time, I'll be taking you through in the exact, gloriously scatterbrained order it was written in. We're keeping the same format as well, with the original text up here and my own amateur evaluation in the form of chess.com analysis icons here. I should add the disclaimer that Pliny makes a lot of very specific historical claims in this book, which, unfortunately, he's kind of one of the only sources we have for this time period. So with certain
no way
events
to
he
confirm
describes,
them?
if it's entirely plausible that it maybe happened, it gets the book move icon. Otherwise, we'll dip into these guys. With that, let us begin.
Book 7. Man.
Alright, so now that I've described the entire Earth, let's move on to all those little things moving around on it. The most important of which is, of course, man. With everything she's created for us, nature is like a mother to humanity. Sometimes a good mother, other times, kind of a bitch.
Not so
First off,
much.
every other living thing starts out with some level of protection from the elements. Shells, furs, feathers, scales, hides, bark. Not humans. We arrive naked and cold and screaming and pathetic. But despite living through such embarrassment, some babies later go on to become narcissists. They might not remember where they came from, but I do. Most animals are born with instinctive knowledge of how to navigate the world,
Well, we have something that all those other animals don't. Our brain. We have intelligence. That is our best tool.
that through walking or flight or swimming. Meanwhile, a baby doesn't know shit. Literally, all it can do is weep. For this reason, many people believe they'd be better off not being born at all, or barring that, being annihilated at the first possible moment. But man is unique among the animals in all kinds of ways. He's the only one to experience ambition and greed and grief and superstition, and he's the only one who cares about what happens after he dies. Also, while an animal's problems are generally caused by other species, most of a human's problems come from other humans. And man, are there a lot of other humans. The earth is covered with all kinds of different nations, each with their own languages and customs. For example, there are many tribes that eat human flesh. Now, before you judge, you should remember
cannibalism
that there
is
used
a
to be
thing.
people who did the exact same thing right here in Italy, those being, of course, the Cyclopes. And anyway, just across the Alps, there's the same thing right here in Italy, those being, of course, the Cyclopes.
Okay, so this is not actually real. Yeah, this one's fake. Based on Sam's amateur analysis.
And anyway, just across the Alps, there are still people doing human sacrifices, which is basically the same thing as cannibalism. But let's take a look at just a few of the world's myriad peoples. Up north dwell the Arimaspi, a one-eyed race who constantly wage war with the Griffins in order to steal their hoards of gold. In the valley of Mount Imaus live the Abarimon, a savage people whose feet are on backwards. They're capable of running at incredible speeds, but if you take them out of their home valley, they'll suffocate, which is why few people have ever seen them. But if you think that's crazy, Wait till you hear about this. Over in Albania, there are men with green eyes and white hair their whole lives, and also they see better at night than during the day. Along the greater Syrtes, there used to be a tribe called the Scylla. Their bodies produced a substance that was poisonous to snakes. It was thus a custom of theirs to put a bunch of snakes next to their newborns. If the snakes weren't repelled, they knew the kid was a product of adultery. Among the Tribali and Illyrii, there are enchanters with 2 pupils in each eye that can literally kill you with a mean look. Plenty of other—
I don't know if 2 pupils in one eye is even physically possible. Obviously, there are many different things which can cause humans to have different abnormalities, but I don't think 2 pupils in one eye is one of them. At least I've never heard of it, never seen it. You can have eyes that are both different colors, like one is green, the other's blue, but never seen 2 pupils in one.
Other people are known to have magical body parts.
That would be freaky.
For example, King Pyrrhus could cure diseases of the spleen simply by touching the patient with the big toe of his right foot. When they cremated him, said big toe was not consumed by the flames, so they put it in a little box for safekeeping. On certain mountains, there are men with the heads of dogs who bark instead of speaking, and they use their dog claws to catch and eat birds for some reason. There's also the Monocoli, a one-legged race who, as you might expect, are really good at hopping. Near the mouth of the Ganges live the Astomi, a hairy people with no mouths at all. Instead of eating or drinking, they subsist entirely on smells, carrying scented roots or flowers with them wherever they go. And if they take a whiff of something too pungent, they just straight up die. Beyond the Astomi are the Pygmies, who are a mere 27 inches tall. These people wage war with the cranes, which you'd feel threatened too if you were yay big. Every spring, they descend on goatback to the seashore, where they smash the cranes' eggs and young to prevent them from multiplying. The lifespans of different races can vary significantly. Remember that place in India I talked about earlier, the one where there aren't any shadows ever? Well, the people there are 8 feet tall and live to be 130, and even then they still look middle-aged when they die. But that's not the longest on record. There's a tribe called the Pandore who live to be 200. These guys are actually born with white hair that turns black. Can you imagine? When they get old. On the other side of lifespan,
if you could live 200 years
past 40, some bang animals to make human-animal hybrids, and among the Kalinga of India, the women
humans banging animals has definitely happened before, and it's currently still happening. I mean, I'm sure there's cases where humans have sexual intercourse with an animal, which is disgusting. But yeah, you're not going to be making any hybrids.
Conceive at age 5 and die at age 8. So as we've already seen, the marvels of nature are many and varied. Let's now turn from interesting groups to interesting individuals, starting with some facts about birth. It's fairly common to give birth to up to 3 children at once. Any more than that is usually an omen of some kind. Except in Egypt, that's just normal there. They got something in the water. During the reign of Augustus, a woman named Fausta gave birth to 2 boys and 2 girls at once, which was no doubt a warning sign of the famine that happened right after. As for the most babies had in one sitting, the current record is 7, which was, of course, set in Egypt. Occasionally, people—
Okay, so the most babies that were born at once currently is 9. 5 girls and 4 boys. That is insane. 9 kids at once. How the hell does that even happen?
People are born belonging to both sexes at once. We call them hermaphrodites. They were formerly looked upon as monsters, but at the present day, they are employed for sensual purposes. Now and then, people are even born belonging to multiple species. Claudius Caesar wrote that one time in Thessaly, a centaur was born and then immediately died. I even saw one of them myself, brought up from Egypt
sure
and
you did.
In a big thing of honey. Anyway, human birthing habits are unusual among the animals. While most other creatures only reproduce during set seasons, humans do it year-round.
Yes,
a successful
that's
pregnancy typically lasts 7 to 11 months. Any earlier, and sorry, kid's not gonna make it. A woman once claimed to carry a kid for 13 months, but it was during a weird inheritance lawsuit, and I don't know, I smell shenanigans. So the health of an unborn child is dependent on the lifestyle of the mother. For example, if she eats too much salted meat, the child will be born with no fingernails. Also, if she yawns during labor, she will die. And if she sneezes right after sex, instant abortion. Babies normally emerge head first. Those who come out feet first we call agrippe, and they all grow up to be troublemakers. You know that piece of shit Nero? Not only did he slither out feet first, but his mom's name? Agrippina. On the other hand, babies that have to be cut out of their mom tend to be upstanding gentlemen. Scipio Africanus was one, as well as a certain Caesarean fellow. It's well known that children inherit certain traits from their parents, such as facial features, birthmarks, moles, and scars. Sometimes these traits even skip generations.
Okay, so yeah, obviously some of these things he's actually completely correct about, but others, yeah, it's just completely wrong.
That's what happened with the Byzantine woman who had an affair with an Ethiopian man. Though her daughter shared her complexion, her grandson came out the same color as his granddad. He then became a famous wrestler. A child's facial features are strongly influenced by the minds and imaginations of the parents. This is why
What?
humans with their powers of intellect look all kinds of different ways, whereas say a lion is dumb and therefore looks like any lion. Sometimes people look just like other people even when they're not related. This was the case with two slave boys of remarkable beauty purchased by Mark Antony. He bought them under the impression that they were twins, only to then hear them speak wildly different languages. Needless to say, he was pissed. He went back to the slave dealer like, "What the hell, dude? You charge me twin prices for two completely unrelated boys." But the slave dealer was clever. He replied, "Listen, pal, of course a pair of twins would look like each other, nothing special about that. These boys came from two different continents, which is way more remarkable. So really, you got a good deal here. I could have charged you miracle prices." Mark Antony
Honestly?
was like, "Huh, you know, when you put it that way, I guess this is cooler, thanks." Anyway, men are capable of making children their whole lives. Just look at King Massinissa. He had a son when he was 86. Meanwhile, women can't bear children past 50, and their monthly discharge tends to stop at around the age of 40. Fun fact, of all living...
I'm not sure what the exact age is past which women can no longer have children. I'm pretty sure it's different for each woman, but yeah, it is usually around 50 to 55, I think. So yeah, he was not wrong there, he was correct.
things, female humans are the only ones to go through menses, and what incredible effects it has. For starters, the very presence of a woman on her period will cause must to go sour, seeds to go sterile, and plants to wither away. What's more, her gaze will dim the brightness of mirrors, blunt the edge of steel, and cause brass and iron to rust. And if she looks at a swarm of bees, they will immediately die. Also, one taste of the fallen goo will give a dog rabies. For most women, menses occurs every 30 days, with a really big one every 3 months. However, in some individuals, it never happens. These women are incapable of bearing children, and that's because said fallen goo is what babies are made out of. Hey, let's talk about teeth. Normal infants get their first teeth at the 7th month of life. On the 7th year, these fall out and new teeth take their place. Occasionally, a baby is born with its teeth already erupted. If it's male, great sign. That's how Manius Curius Dentatus got his last name, and he grew up to be a distinguished statesman. If it's female, terrible omen of things to come. A girl named Valeria was born with a full set, and the soothsayers were like, yeah, that means the city's gonna be destroyed. Out of fear, her family then sent her out to the flourishing city of Suessa Pompetia, which was razed to the ground by war shortly after. Some people are even born with one
Yeah, I mean, that was just bad luck. That had nothing to do with the kid.
continuous bone where their teeth should be, which isn't a sign of anything in particular. All men have at least 32 teeth, except in Spain. Women, meanwhile, have fewer. How many fewer? Can't say. Human beings...
No, every single person has the same amount of teeth, which is 32. Although I'm pretty sure that nowadays, less and less people actually have wisdom teeth, which is the 8th one, because I'm quite sure that due to how much food has changed, we simply don't need them anymore, because I think they were used mainly for meat, to chew tough things, and yeah, with food getting softer, they're no longer necessary, so less people are born with them. I think. Don't quote me on that. I, unfortunately, have all 4 wisdom teeth. I've already had 2 of them pulled, one a few days ago, the one up here. It sucked, but it is what it is. Luckily, the 2 that I've had pulled, the ones on the top, both fully erupted, so it was an easy process. The ones on the bottom are stuck, and I don't think they're gonna erupt, so that's gonna take surgery, which is gonna suck even more. Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't lucky enough to be born without them.
Grow to a variety of heights. It's observed that men are getting shorter over time, with sons rarely growing taller than their fathers. This is no doubt a sign of the firestorm set to consume the world any day now. Homer had the same complaint 1,000 years ago, which makes you wonder how tall people must have been back then. After an earthquake in Crete, an upright body was exposed measuring 46 cubits in height. This was commonly thought to be the corpse of Orion. The tallest guy in modern times was a man named Gabarus, who was 9'9". On the flip side was a man named Canopus. He was a mere 2 feet and a palm in height, and was kept as a pet by Augustus's granddaughter. Also noteworthy was the 3-year-old who hit puberty, growing to 3 cubits and speaking like a grown man. He died of a seizure the following year. Men are generally heavier than women, and the bodies of all animals get heavier when they die or go to sleep. Some men are born with solid bones, devoid of marrow. They can be identified by the fact that they never sweat and never get thirsty. Also, Big Well doesn't want you to know this, but you can just stop drinking water forever if you set your mind to it. There was once a noble named Julius Viator who got dropsy in his youth. His physician...
Well, I mean, technically he's not wrong. You can stop drinking water. It's just that you won't survive for very long if you do. So you can do it, it's just not recommended if you want to live.
Told him that the cure for fluid buildup in the body is naturally to stop putting fluids in your body. By the time he got better, Julius was so used to not drinking that he just kept going. Let's take a look at some other instances of remarkable human abilities. To begin with, history has no shortage of strong men. There was a guy who killed a man with a single finger, another who won a one-handed tug-of-war with a carriage, and let's not forget Fusius, nicknamed the Bumpkin Hercules, who had a habit of carrying his own mule around, just, because. I personally once saw a dude with 500 pounds on his chest and another 500 on his feet walk across a stage. Real shit, it was crazy. How about agility? If I asked you to name the greatest runner, you might say Philippides of marathon fame. Let me tell you, that's nothing. One of Alexander's couriers once ran 150 miles in a single day, and there's some freaks at the circus who can manage 160. Hell, even an 8-year-old once ran 75 miles from dawn to dusk. Some men are blessed with acuteness of sight. Cicero informs us that the Iliad of Homer was written on a piece of parchment so small as to be enclosed in a nutshell. You know, Homer, famous for his good eyes. Also, during the Punic Wars, there was a man named Strabo who would sit at the tip of Sicily to keep watch on Carthage, around 90 miles away. He'd be like, oh, they're coming. I'm seeing 15 galleys in a canoe. Meanwhile, we have one example of good hearing on record. On the day the city of Sybaris was destroyed, there was a person in Olympia who was like, guys, I think Sybaris is getting mogged. Others have an unusually high tolerance for pain. A man named Anaxarchus was once tortured in order to extract information from him. In response, he chewed off his own tongue and spat it at the torturer, thus ensuring he wouldn't say anything useful at all. Still others have exceptional memories.
Okay.
King Cyrus knew all of his soldiers by name, and one Scipio could name every Roman. Period. The act of memorization has actually been made into an art form by certain lyric poets, such that with practice they could remember any arbitrary sequence of words. But memory is a delicate thing, being damaged by disease, injuries, and even fear. One time a guy got hit with a rock and forgot the alphabet. Another guy fell off a roof and forgot who his mom was. Since we're on the subject, let's take a look at some of the greatest minds to ever live. The award for vigor of mind goes to Julius Caesar. He could dictate 7 letters at the same time somehow, and he fought in 50 battles, which is a record. Between all of them, Caesar is responsible for the death of 1,192,000 men. Some might glorify him for this, but actually it's kind of messed up if you think about it.
Yeah, it is.
The award for clemency and greatness of mind is a tie between Pompey the Great and Caesar again. It's close though. Pompey was an all-timer. He was about as epic as Alexander the Great and Hercules and maybe even Bacchus. Early in his career, he conquered, the entirety of Africa. That's how he got the Great added to his name. Early in his career, he conquered, the entirety.
Yeah, that's all of Africa. There's nothing else.
Of Africa. That's how he got the Great added to his name, and brother, he was just getting started. Dude ended the Civil War, ended piracy, subjugated all kinds of places, defeated like 12 million men, captured 1,538 cities and fortresses, and commissioned the cool statue that I read all this from. Honorable mention goes to Cato. There are 3 great things a guy can be: an orator, a general, and a politician. Cato kicked ass at all of them, which is why he was acquitted from all 44 of his impeachment hearings. As for history's most courageous man, there's an argument to be made for a lot of guys. One big contender was L. Cicius Dentatus, which different Dentatus from the one before. He fought in 120 battles, gaining 45 scars on the front of his body, yet none on the back. What does that tell you? He was also the most decorated war hero, receiving 18 victor's spears, 25 pendants, 83 torques, 160 bracelets, 26 crowns, a fisk of money, 10 prisoners, and 20 oxen in total. The award for biggest genius, in my opinion, goes to Homer. I mean, have you read his stuff? Come on. Alexander the Great knew it. Among the spoils he took from King Darius was one of the most ornate boxes he'd ever seen. It was originally full of perfume, and Alexander was like, ugh, I'm a warrior, I don't wear perfume. But my god, what a beautiful box. There's only one thing suitable for a box like this. I'm putting Homer's poems in it. The most useful rules for a happy life were uttered by a man named Chilon.
Homer's works are far more valuable than some perfume.
He kept it simple. There were only 3. Know yourself, don't be greedy, and don't get into debts or lawsuits. That guy literally died of joy, so clearly he was onto something.
Yeah, sure.
You may be asking, Pliny, who is the best guy? Well, the answer is Scipio Nasica. Out of every guy, he was declared the best. The Senate took a vote
By
on it
who?
under oath. They were like, yep, he's him. He later died in exile. The greatest act of affection for another human was committed in Rome by a lower class woman. She had recently given birth and started periodically visiting her mother, who was in jail. Whenever she went, the guards would search her to make sure she wasn't smuggling in food for her mom. Turns out, she found a way around this policy. It was eventually discovered that every visit, she would nourish her own mother with the milk of her breast. So the jailer said, look, this is a crazy thing to do for anyone, let alone a prisoner. There must have been some kind of mistake here. No woman who is this dearly loved can possibly be evil. So you know what? You're free to go. One of the greatest physicians to ever live was Asclepiades of Prusa. He was famous for figuring out a way to cure diseases using wine. One time during a funeral, the body was getting loaded onto the pyre when suddenly Asclepiades broke in. He goes, hold up, step aside, I got this. Ended up saving his life. Asclepiades was so confident in his own abilities.
I mean, I have heard of cases where someone was believed to be deceased, but it turns out they actually weren't. But I mean, yeah, this is a long time ago, so how valid that is, how much truth there is to it, I don't know. Probably not much.
With fate, publicly declaring, right, if I ever so much as get sick, I will stop practicing medicine forever. He won his wager, for he met his death at an extreme old age by falling downstairs. But forget all these upper crusters, how about the greatest slave? By virtue of the market, this can actually be answered quantitatively. Such a distinction goes to a grammarian by the name of Daphnis, who sold for a price of 700,000 sesterces. Sam sidebar, based on prices from around Pliny's time, that's equivalent to around 1,400 donkeys or 1.4 million loaves of bread. Some comic actors nowadays
how much would that be today?
For higher prices, but they all buy their own freedom, so that doesn't count. It's their own life. Of course they pay above MSRP. Anyway, here's the real question. Who is the happiest person to ever live? Happiness is so subjective that it's hard to get a definite answer here.
That's true.
Actually, you know what? Never mind. Trick question. Nobody on Earth is happy. Even somebody who gets whatever he wants would be constantly haunted by the fear of losing it, and someday he will. The Thracians, in their vanity, thought up a way to calculate their overall happiness. At the end of each day, they'd put a pebble in a jar. On a good day, they'd put a white one, and on a bad day, they'd put a black one. Then they'd look back and say, hey, I had 6 times as many good days this week as bad ones, so I must be a happy person after all. This man is lying to himself. Let's take a closer look at the days in question, alright? Monday through Saturday, I ate some olives and they were good. Sunday, my dog died. These things don't balance each other out.
That's also true.
Negative. Up to the present day, only one person has had the nerve to give himself the last name of Happy, and that was El Sila. You know, the guy who marched on Rome, revived the dictatorship, and murdered thousands of his fellow citizens to consolidate his power. If that's where you derive your happiness from, you're a fucking disgrace. Honestly, we should call him unhappy. Owned. Also, he died of flesh rot, deservedly, so, you know, didn't last forever. On the topic of happiness, one time
Sulla walked so Caesar could run.
That's
all I'm gonna say.
The most powerful man in the world at the time, asked the oracle at Delphi if anyone was happier than himself. The oracle said, yeah, Aglaus. Who? Aglaus. He's an old guy in Arcadia with a small farm that he never leaves, because why would he? Look at him, he's just vibing. Let's circle back to human lifespans. What single person lived the longest? There's a bunch of ancient kings that are claimed to have lived anywhere from 150 to 800 years, but personally I think it's all a load of crap. For one thing, different nations have different ways of counting years. The Arcadians actually counted each season as a whole year, so they're cheating. In Egypt, they count each cycle of the moon as a year, just so they can be like, yeah, the pharaoh lived to be 1,000. Forget all that. Let's look at some actual verifiable info here. Among Romans, the highest on record was one T. Polonius, who made it to 150. Besides him, there's a bunch of folks who have made it at least a handful of years past 100, mostly senators and nobles. One mime. She was even still performing at the triple-digit mark. But even in these cases, the gift of life is all too brief. The years alone are misleading. We spend half of it asleep, for one. Our years as a baby don't count. We don't know what the hell's going on. Also, being old sucks so bad that we shouldn't count that either. Honestly, the best thing a guy can hope for is to die young. Otherwise, he has to watch himself lose his senses, his strength, his teeth, his GI tract. That's not living.
Technically not wrong, but
death
damn.
comes for us all, and there are plenty of signs that a patient's death is imminent. One is if the patient carefully folds controls the edge of their bed sheet. If they're hard to wake up, that's another bad sign. There's involuntary discharges, and I won't elaborate. But the biggest signs are an irregular and feeble pulse, and also just kind of looking a certain way. All things considered, though, it's actually pretty difficult to say for sure if a person is really dead. A consul named Aviola once came back to life right in the middle of his own cremation, and the flames were so violent that all anyone could do was watch. Sometimes the soul leaves the body for an extended period of time and returns after. This was the case of one Hermotinus of Clazomene, whose soul would just dip for a while, wandering far off lands while his body laid lifeless. Then he'd wake up with all kinds of news about the places he visited. There was also once a boy who took a nap in a cave and woke up to find himself in a much different world. Turns out he had slept for 57 years. There are tons of other stories floating around about people briefly coming back to life and dying again, but you know most of them are made up, because they usually go something like this, right? Oh yeah, I was alone with my dead brother when he got up and clapped his hands and told me exactly how his funeral should go and where he hid his gold, and also he made me the sole heir of his estate. Anyway, the best kind of death to have is a sudden one, and thankfully that's a fairly common and natural occurrence.
Yeah, true.
Plenty of people have died of joy, like that Kylo guy I mentioned earlier.
It is better to die quickly and painlessly than have a long, drawn-out death, which is just pain and suffering.
There was once a professor of logic named Diodorus who couldn't immediately answer a tricky question his friend posed and subsequently died of embarrassment. Plenty more die without any apparent cause at all, just going about their day. I've got a bunch of examples here of guys dying while putting on their shoes, after giving a speech, after stubbing their toe, while applying ointment to their patient's eye, while reaching for cake, while eating
You could just have a random heart attack.
It can happen at any time, while reaching for cake, while eating an egg, while having sex. It can happen at any time. And after that, it's time to dispose of the body. As you've probably gathered, we burn bodies in Rome nowadays. It used to be that we'd bury people, but during the foreign wars, a lot of guys got dug up, which nobody wants to get dug up, you know? So we switched to cremation. Anyway, so here we stand at the end of man's journey through life. Only one question remains. What happens after we die? I'll give it to you straight.
Nobody knows.
We go back to the same place as before we were born. Pure oblivion, that's it. Humans in their vanity have dreamt up all kinds of fantasies about the afterlife, with immortal souls or reincarnation or a second life as some shade underground. People will even pay honors to the spirits of the departed like there's some kind of god now. But he ain't even a guy anymore. It all stems from the imaginations of people who are scared of non-existence. Well, you shouldn't be. Matter of fact, it's the best case scenario. Non-existence is as peaceful as it gets. And anyway, we got enough to worry about in this life. There's no reason at all to get yourself all worked up about the next one. So thank you for joining me in this grand tour through human existence. Real quick before I go, here's a giant list of every invention and their inventors and 3 dedicated chapters about the alphabet, barbers, and sundials for some reason. But that's all for now. See you next time on Book 8, The Nature of the Terrestrial Animals, which I will present eventually. Pliny out.
Eventually. Well, Pliny certainly was a very interesting man, that has to be said. It's just crazy how a guy that lived centuries ago. I mean, this was... When was Pliny around? Okay, he lived around the 1st century. 2,000 years. And this guy was so accurate about certain things which we didn't figure out until hundreds or thousands of years later. But yeah, then you have the stuff like, there's people in this region which live this much, who live this long, or who have hybrids with different animals, all that stuff. But I guess you can't be right about everything. Yeah, so anyway, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. If you want to see more reactions, check out this video right here. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.